Well, thanks for joining us here on Brevard Watch. Melbourne Beach is a special place. What's some of the news that's happening there?
We just finished our budget process, and we have a nice budget that we can live with, and we've initiated our search for a town manager about a month ago, and we've narrowed it down to 6 finalists that we're scheduling interviews for. So we hope to get a new town manager on board for about maybe in a month or so, hopefully. So that's where we're at right now on those. Those are the big issues.
One of the big issues that you've talked about at a chamber event was home rule. Mm-hmm. Something that is a source of tension between the legislature and city governments. How is that issue of home rule playing out for Melbourne Beach?
Well, it constricts us in many areas. We get complaints from residents about the vacation rental next door. What are we going to do about it? Well, we can't do anything about it. State rule, state legislation prohibits us from putting any restrictions on the duration of how long somebody can rent a house or an apartment or anything. Homeowners associations can regulate them, but we don't really have any homeowners association. Municipalities and counties can't. So what we're seeing is companies coming in and buying up houses that are on the market and turning them into short-term vacation rentals. And they put in a pool if it doesn't have a pool, and they rent it out to people who are on vacation. And I'm kind of torn because, you know, my wife and I, we stay in these types of places, but we're not coming down for a reunion or a party or something. And we see a lot of these houses are turned into party houses, and they're right in the middle of a neighborhood. And there's nothing we can do except enforce a noise ordinance or something like that. But we cannot say that you have to have a minimum stay of 6 months in order to rent it, or a year, or 3 months. So if they want to rent it by the night, they can rent it by the night. And so what we're seeing is a lot of people who come down on vacation, many cars in the driveway along the streets, many people around the pool late at night, and it's disturbing the residents who live there year round.
So if the state had respected this kind of tradition in Florida of home rule, meaning that the cities create the laws and the ordinances that are closest to its people, you would have that power, but we're seeing more preemption at the state level.
We had that power specifically on vacation rentals until 2011 when the state took it away. Now, there were some forward-thinking communities like Satellite Beach, like Indialantic, who had legislation in place about minimum duration of stays. And so far, the state has allowed them to continue that. They could take that away at any time, but they were grandfathered in, and had we had one, we would be grandfathered in. Now, next session, the state may say, oh, we don't mean that anymore. We're going to take that authority away from you. So it's a macro issue on many levels of home rule. You know, federalism, 3 levels of government, and each one has less control theoretically on the local residents. But the state is in a power grab right now, and has been for the last few years, to take authority away from municipalities to regulate themselves. And there have been negative statements made by state representative leadership, the Speaker of the House, proposed Speaker of the House, on how municipal government is the most corrupt government of any level. I would argue that it's probably the least corrupt and least influenced by big money contributions. And you're seeing a lot of these driven, I believe, by big money contributions. We cannot regulate shark fishing. So if you're on the beach and somebody comes up with a shark fishing rig and you're swimming and they dump their bucket of bloody grouper heads next to you, we can't do anything to inhibit that. We can't make them move down the beach. We can't send them to a different beach. We can't do anything. We can't do anything on we had a referendum that any zoning changes would require voter approval in our town. It passed with over 90% of the voters. The state took that authority away from us. So we cannot send zoning changes to the residents to vote on. We have to make a decision on that as a commission. So they preempted our authority to regulate plastic bags or styrofoam. They've preempted our authority to regulate guns in parks. You know, so they're taking these things away more and more and more and more from municipalities. Now, ironically, you see them they can restrict guns in their meetings, but we can't restrict guns in our meetings, for instance. So a lot of the things they're putting on us, they don't put on themselves.
Just went up to the state capitol to do some work for Brevard Public Schools, and I went through the metal detectors probably 10 times,
Right.
going in and out of
Right.
out of meetings. So,
Right.
how would you size up Melbourne Beach's relations with schools in the school district?
We have a really good relationship with Gemini Elementary, which is in the town of Melbourne Beach. We actually extended our borders some years ago to include them. And unfortunately, we have a declining young population, so Gemini Elementary is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. They serve the whole South Beaches, which is a mailing address of Melbourne Beach, but they're not in the town, and then they serve our kids. So we support them in their activities, and Hoover Middle School and then Mel High. We have a lot of people who want to use our parks for fundraisers and things like that, races and stuff. We recently, maybe 2 years ago, said we're going to restrict that number of people who use it. However, if it's a fundraiser for Gemini, Hoover, or Melbourne, because they are our children, we give them pretty much an open checkbook as far as using it. They just have to tell us what they're doing, and we have to make sure there's no interference. But we recognize those are our kids' schools, and so we have a special relationship with them. Mel High has a construction program that we're trying to get them to come in and do a refurbishment on our old town hall post office that they actually built for us as a shop project probably 20, 25 years ago. Hoover Middle School, I just met with the principal, Brad Merrill. He's a new principal there, and he wanted to know how can Hoover get involved in Melbourne Beach. And so we're trying to get them to march in our Christmas parade, their marching band. We're trying to get them a network with them and their students that need community service hours so that they can help some of our elderly or infirm residents who may not be able to clean up storm debris or help us keep our storm clean if they're residents during rain events, huge rain events that the storm grates clog up with leaves and all it takes is a couple handfuls and it's running again. But it takes people to do that. So we're working with Hoover Middle School to maybe participate in some of those activities. So we have a really active and positive relationship, and we know how important they are to Melbourne Beach.
Mayor Simmons, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
today.